I went into this presentation wanting to understand the biases better. And then it led me to the history of homelessness. And then I asked myself, like, kept coming to that. I have no idea what it's like to be homeless. And you know, what do I do, right? What do I do about that? And the thought that just kept coming to mind is, maybe I go homeless for a week, right? Maybe I see what that's like. But I wanted to make sure that it just wasn't like a simulation. Like, I mean, no matter what, it's limited, right? I get to experience it, and then I come back to my home, and like in my bed with warmth and food. And so it's obviously going to be limited, and it has its limitations. But I felt like, you know, to really challenge the biases, I needed to experience what it was like for a little bit. So what I did is I proposed the idea to one of my patients. I just kind of like, hey, you know, I've been thinking about this for a while. I want to go live outside for a little bit. Do you have any places where you recommend that it's safe? And she said, well, why don't you come out with me and just stay with me for a few days, and you can see what it's like. And I have permission to share a lot of what she's been saying and a lot of stuff. So what I did is I ended up going homeless for a weekend a couple weeks ago, and it was a very interesting and humbling experience. I wanted to try to make it as authentic as possible, so I dressed what I thought stereotypical homeless person should be like. I didn't shower for a few days. I went, you know, I grew a beard, and I only had $5, and then a knife, and I think that's about it. Oh, sleeping bag, like a raggedy sleeping bag. And so from there, it was Friday after clinic, and I like discreetly dressed, and people like going in my patients and making sure people don't recognize me as I went outside. I know Sarah's looking at me, like, and I found a place. I found them outside around 6:30 p.m. And what I wanted to do was just kind of, I kind of journaled out my experiences after. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of share that with you guys. So the first thing I did was I actually sat alongside this fence for a while. And first I put down my sleeping bag. And the first thing I did when I put down my sleeping bag is I heard a crack. And I'm like, what is that noise? And I just pretended like it was nothing. I later found out that it was my patient's crack pipe that I had sat on. And so then the next thing that happened was a fight started breaking out. And apparently someone just came up and started saying, yo, where's my bike parts? You know, why did you steal my bike? And it wasn't, I thought he was talking to me, but he was actually talking to the person next to me. And they started getting at it. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know if I can last 2 days. And so from there, it was just, I was nervous in the beginning. I remember there was a lot of smoke around, and I wasn't sure what the smoke was from. Was it tobacco? I saw vape pens. Was it marijuana? And there was a lot of smoke from that. And I was worried because am I going to get like a contact high? And then when I talked to him, like, you know, what's going to happen, the repercussions of my residency, like, or something.
Did you try it?
I did not. I got offered multiple times, but I said no.
You wanted a real experience.
I did. I was like, to get true version, but then I would be single and possibly jobs. I didn't know what the rules were. So I was nervous as I was introduced to the rest of patient Patricia, who was my patient's street family. And I'd just like to introduce you to some of them. So this is Jordan. Jordan is gay. He's a journalism major graduate from a four-year college. He had no previous legal history, and he left his apartment because he wanted to experience what it was like to live on the streets. He was now in the drug scene, quite involved, and his two passions were fashion. He would find Goodwill clothing that he would trade for a little bit of that, or a little bit of cash, or bike parts, and then he would kind of make this like really cool, like he spray painted his shoes and made it look good. The other thing that became a passion of what he became known for was fixing bikes on the street. And so he didn't have any of that skill. He developed that skill because he saw that it would be useful. The next person that I met was Z. So I want to just quickly step out real quick. And what I noticed is that there's a strong concept of family among the homeless. So Jordan is Patricia's son. Z is Patricia's best friend or brother. Now, Z, he's a controversial figure among people, because he has a short temper, he gets into verbal arguments a lot, but he's also the primary caregiver for Patricia. He brings her to all her medical appointments, he helps her carry around. Patricia has a really hard time walking around, and he's incredibly street smart. He told me about how people get like Nikes, like how you see homeless people with Nikes. This is just a weird, strange thing. So like at Goodwill, they're not allowed to bring the shoes and all this stuff in until it's been sanitized. So they leave it outside, and then that's when the night a lot of people go in, take whatever they want, and they go out. So they get all the good stuff from Goodwill. He had always made an effort to dress well. This was important to him, that you should be perceived as someone that's not homeless. He's also notably bisexual, and he had a job cleaning Airbnbs. Now this is Dad. Dad ran the streets. He was an absolute badass despite his age and his health. He was also the kingpin of meth for the streets. And whenever a fight erupted, Dad would be the first one to come to the scene. He would make sure to go up and he'd follow that person. He showed me like his large knives that were about this big. And he loved three things. He loved fishing, he loved his wife Phoebe, and the adventure of the streets. So, the story about Dad is that Dad, Mom, and Patricia were in the Alpha tent in the shelter. But for my project, they felt really strongly that I should feel safe and that they'd be there. And so they actually left the Alpha tent for a couple of days to be with me. Now, Dad found out when he came back to the streets, he's like, this is where I feel most alive. This is where I want to be. And he actually was in line for Bash housing. And because of that day on the streets, he canceled his Bash housing and went back to the streets. Now this is Mom. Mom is Phoebe. Phoebe was married for many years prior to being homeless. She has 3 kids, and then she ended up on the streets after a messy divorce. She loves a few things. If you look over here, that's her cat inside this. She loved her cat, Junior. She also loved Pops and made sure that he was safe and always fed. And then she loved skull art. That was her thing. Oh, and also she was part of like a motorcycle gang, and so she always felt protected. I didn't know if that was a delusion or if that was real. But and then to the right is Patricia. Now Patricia is one of my favorite patients, and she was married with kids for multiple years. She has lived 2 lives. She used to be like a medical secretary and in charge of medical records, but she lost her house in the reception, and like Pops, she's an incredibly strong presence on the street. People don't mess with her. She's also an inheritance of Pops' meth dealings, and she sells a lot. And so she's also very well respected and also very well connected. No one messes with her. And now I'd like you to meet Carlos, which was a nickname that was given, the name that was given to me to make me look believable. You can go through biases. But I was just an old friend who was visiting them for the weekend. When people would ask, so you don't smoke meth? I'd be like, no, but I do weed, like, that was my way of countering it. It didn't really work. So together, my street family and I spent the weekend together, and they became my family. So after meeting up, we walked around the corner to where you see us now on the street, and this is where the action happens. And what I can only describe on Friday night is one of the most adventurous times of my life. And I think Jordan, the son, street son, said it best, which was like, it's a mix of an adult daycare with a third world country. Over the night, I must have counted at least 24 people coming to our encampment, and they were there for a number of reasons. There was a perfume man who was there to barter perfumes for cash or parts or meth. There was the jewelry man who also brought incense. There were people coming in and out wanting to deal meth and sell meth or smoke meth. There was a lot of meth. And then there was also people that cigarettes, like people would like want to sell cigarettes, and it was $5. There was special Marlboros for $10. So people would just constantly be selling cigarettes. And then there were a lot of fights, and that's probably what kept me up the most. Were just like a lot of verbal fights. They protected me from the physical fights, but they would get into a lot of verbal disagreements. So needless to say, I did not sleep much that night. Not only because of the activity, but because it was incredibly cold. It doesn't look like that here, but it was like, felt like 20, 30 degrees, and all I had was a sleeping bag that was now my cushion to prevent me from, so I can sit on the gravel. You're sleeping sitting up. And then there's all these disruptions. The other thing is, if you sleep at night, your belongings get stolen, as Allison mentioned, right? And so, one of the reasons that they smoke meth is to keep them up, so that they don't fall asleep, because it's too dangerous once you fall asleep. You get into fights, people will steal stuff, etc. And then even if you did get some sleep, the cops come around 5 a.m. to make sure that you're off the streets, because it's illegal, right? So, and they'll start doing sweeps and cleans or arresting people for misdemeanor charges if you stay after that. Now, needless to say, Friday night, did not sleep well, so Saturday morning, we went on a coffee run, and then it was relatively uneventful. I went fishing with Dad. Dad loves to fish, and he's like, let's go for fish. So that was fun. But I was really tired. So I started looking for a park for me to kind of rest in, and I found a park next to some kids. And if you're dressed the way I was, I started noticing like, whoa, like the parents are starting to kind of hug their kids a little bit closer, kind of shoo them this way. And it was quite an interesting experience for me to be like, listen, I just want to pass out, I'm so tired. But, that was an interesting experience. The second thing is, fishing was wrapping up around 5 p.m. We started heading it back, headed back with Z. And Z wanted to go to Gaslight to Ralph's because he wanted to drink some wine that night. So we went inside, you can't bring any belongings inside Ralph's. So he had me sit outside Ralph's. So here I am, dressed like I am, sitting outside Ralph's with a whole bunch of suitcases and luggage. And I start getting glances from people. And I'm like there's like eye contact, and then I'm like, oh, I get it. Like these are the glances I give them, and then as soon as they make eye contact, so it's kind of like starting to force eye contact with people. But they were just kind of like, no. And I was just thinking about the panhandling. The other thing is, so Z came out of Ralph's, and he unzipped his jacket, and he pulled out 2 water bottles. I mean, not 2 wine bottles. And then he opened his bag, and there was a 3rd wine bottle. And so he taught me like how he did that. How did he shoplift? How he got there. Then on the way back, we ran into one of these wheels things, these electric powered ones. And he said, hey, let's take this back. This is important. And I said, why? And he's like, well, this is what lets us charge the batteries for 8 hours. So they can manipulate the battery here to be able to charge batteries, not for 8 hours, for 8 days. That's how strong the batteries are. And it also served a function later on to help us build the tent. So that was Saturday afternoon. Saturday night, it was very cold. And so to keep us warm from the inclement weather, we built a tent. And this is what they call an urban tent. And it's made with tarp. My sleeping bag is at the bottom. And you see the wheels bike over here. It was used to hold up a part of the tent. And then there was also a construction sign to hold the other part. And then to tie the pieces together, they would take out the yarn from your scarf and just kind of use that as a way. So incredibly, incredibly resourceful. Now, this is an insider view of what the tent looked like. As you can see, it's pretty cozy. I was still sleeping sitting up because there's just not enough space, but I definitely got better sleep than I did the night before. Now, Sunday morning was relatively uneventful. I was tired. I was like, okay, I think I know what I need to get out and go home. So I went to 7-Eleven. We got coffee and tea, and then I got those free breakfast burritos from some generous folks at Burrito World or something. And so I ate that, and then I walked into clinic. Now I want to give a little caveat. So no. Okay, so it turns out that that Monday, the microwave and the toaster were stolen from the clinic. And I was thinking, shoot, Sunday, did I leave the door open? And so one of the administrators, she came up to me, she said, I saw you on your video camera, walking in, and I wasn't sure who that was. It looked like a very suspicious figure, and someone said, that might be Anish. I was like, no, I just came in, to do some work. Just dressed like that. So, anyway, I'm going to read off my paper because I think this is what my reflections were on the process. This was quite an experience, needless to say. Growing up in a relatively conservative immigrant family and believing that the homeless did not work hard enough, to now working at SVDP, St. Vincent's, and in psychiatry, and developing a much more sympathetic view. I was hoping to walk out of this experience with a lot more clarity. But in fact, more than anything, I was humbled. You see, the heuristics and biases I have want me to see the world in black and white, because that makes my world more livable. But the world is so much more gray when you peek a little bit closer. I saw incredible generosity, resourcefulness, family, unity, kindness, and adventure. But I also saw robbery, drug dealers, violence, poor health choices, people taking advantage of the welfare system. I met people who wanted to leave the streets, and they were there unwillingly. And I also met those who stayed on the streets for the choice of freedom and for adventure. I saw some with severe mental illness, and I saw many with none. Some who matched the stereotypes of dirty and unhygienic and tweakers, and others who did not. I struggled with this concept of noblesse oblige. Has anybody ever heard about this? This is a French concept that basically says that the noble have a duty to help those less privileged. But it made me question how much am I giving as part of this duty, because it helps me justify my privilege. And more importantly, who am I to say what's right for this population, right? Like, for some people, the streets are the only family they've ever had, and the only family they've ever known, and the most freedom that they've ever tasted. How would I feel if an MBA with no MD experience came in and told me how to live my life or work on my job? I began this project as a journey to have more clarity on the biases that affect homeless. And overall, I left with more questions than answers. This is an incredibly complex issue with many layers and something I am not equipped to solve. But in the end, though, it was what I was looking for. A better understanding of the lives of my patients and the things they encounter when they leave my clinic office. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming with me on this humbling and very educational journey. Take any questions. Yeah.
Did you, I guess I did something similar to this, but just like for one night a couple of times, and
Yeah.
something that struck me was like how generous people were with
Yeah.
homeless people. Like
Yeah.
both of my experiences, people would just come up unsolicited and give them